Pressure sewer systems typically can be installed at a fraction of the price of a gravity system. The site excavation and site work that's required to introduce a pressure sewer system is minimal compared to a gravity system. But what that does from a land acquisition and development standpoint is it opens up the palette. It creates freedom that was prior to looking at a pressure sewer technology would not have been present and applicable. And it really allows developers to take a piece of marginal land that typically they may pass on and look at it and evaluate it as a potential project and bring it to market.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Land Development Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Glick. If this is your first time joining us, each week when you tune in, you're going to hear one of two different types of shows. Sometimes when you tune in, you're going to hear industry news. That's where we pull up a few different headlines and we talk about what it means for the land development industry. Then other times, you're going to hear an interview style show where we have on someone associated with the land development industry and we talk about some topics that are of interest to them. Now, today I'm excited to have with me Chris Nedwick. Chris is the National Sales Development Manager at Environment One Corporation. Chris, thanks for joining me.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and we're going to be digging into a topic we've never talked about before. We're going to get a little technical into some very specific things in the development process. But before we do that, I did want to take a step back and get into your background a little bit. So, you have a sales background, but you're in kind of the building and development industry with what you do. So can you walk us through your origin story and kind of how you got into doing what you're doing today?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I have a construction background. My family owns a commercial construction business in the New York City metro area, based in Long Island, New York. And it's a specialized construction company. It's been in my family since the 1940s, essentially. And specifically, they focus on construction of petroleum distribution centers, gas stations, if you will, convenience stores and things like that. And so that's really been in my blood since I was a little kid. I spent a lot of time on the backhoe and the excavator and the bulldozer, probably a little sooner than I should have. And that company grew to be significant in that market with around 200 employees at one point, and remain there to this day. So I did that starting probably in the mid 90s, and worked in the five boroughs for around 13 years, the five boroughs and Long Island markets primarily, but also Connecticut and New Jersey. So the tri-state area, as we call it in the Northeast. And, it's a great field. It was a growing industry at the time. It's ever evolving. And decided to make a clean break from that. Even at a young age, I got a little burnout from kind of being in that culture, if you will. Just the hustle and bustle, 6-7 day work week sometimes got to be a little bit strenuous. And I was still a young man at the time, and I decided that I wanted to do something different. So I got out and would have been probably in the early 2000s, and actually worked for a time with the U.S. House of Representatives. So talk about a clean break. I went to college, took some classes, met some people, and ended up in the House of Representatives working for a local representative that put a lot of time and effort into transportation projects. So I was working on transportation projects, specifically in economic development, helping to facilitate federal dollars for local economic initiatives. And that may have looked like funding for a bridge or a highway expansion or another exit, something like that. But also for infrastructure purposes, for expanding electrical coverage and things like that. Sometimes other utilities like water and even sewer in some cases. Decided that wasn't for me after a short stint, and wanted to get back into the private sector, and ended up at Environment One, I think around 2007. And started off, the CEO at the time and I got together, and he said, it'd be great if you could come work here for us. And he wanted me to start in field service. So I started in the field, actually commissioning systems and working on pump systems, working with contractors, working with developers, engineers, even municipalities, and really learned a great deal. It was a great way to learn the business from the ground up. And that was kind of the strategy, was to learn from the ground up. And advanced, my career path took me through inside sales support, and then eventually into outside sales roles. And in the course of doing that, really began to interface with builder developers quite a bit and see the power that pressure sewer unlocks for land development. I started to notice it on my own. But the company, Environment One, that I work for has been supporting the builder developer space for decades. So I became integrated with the builder developer community that way, started to talk to builder developers. Hey, what made you go in this direction? And more times than not, it was based on cost savings and just doing it a smarter, better way. So that was really eye opening to have some of those early discussions and hear from the marketplace, why it is that they chose to go in the direction of pressure sewer. And it put me on a trajectory where I really do spend a great deal of time now professionally working directly with top builders throughout the country. Had a educational technical learning session with the top 5 national builder this week in Pittsburgh, PA. And my role takes me all over the country. And, that's kind of how I skipped over a lot to get to where I am now. But working with builder developers is my role now. And it's incredibly rewarding and fulfilling to just see success stories, unfold.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Environment One, and I think for people listening in who don't know who Environment One is, you mentioned a little bit about it, but can you give kind of the big picture of what the company does? And I know we're going to dig into more of the nuts and bolts of the low pressure sewer and everything here in just a little bit. But as far as the company is concerned, can you give that high level picture of what the company is?
Absolutely. So we have 2 sections to our business. On the one side, we do utility power gen compliance for efficiency and safety, essentially. And that's simplifying it greatly. The other side of the business, which is the side that I work on, is the sewer systems business. And we're a manufacturer of low pressure sewer systems dating back to really from a research and development standpoint from the mid 1960s. We were the first company to bring pressure sewer to market in 1969, 1970. Somewhere in there is when we decided to move forward and actually take pressure sewer to the marketplace. I think our first installation was done in around 1971, somewhere in that area. So E1 is a manufacturer of low pressure sewer systems. We're located in Nisku, New York. We've been in the same location since 1969. We have about 150 employees now. We're in the midst of a significant expansion that'll increase our throughput greatly. We're an industry leader and an industry innovator, really industry inventor. So we service all 50 U.S. states. We have closing in on 1 million units out there that we have in service and about 3 million end users on a daily basis. Every day we connect about 200 households to an E1 sewer system somewhere around the globe.
Gotcha. Well, I'm a noob when it comes to sewer systems. I don't know a lot about sewer systems. I'm sure a lot of people listening in know way more than I do. So I definitely don't want to insult their intelligence with this. But for me, as I think about this, some of my research I did coming into it, seems like the most common type of sewer system is a gravity-based sewer system. And then you have these low pressure sewer systems. And so can you compare the two of them? Like, what's the difference between the two of them?
Yeah, can certainly compare them. They're both sanitary collection and conveyance systems, so they both do the same thing in terms of the application itself, the need really. Gravity systems, we'll just start there, date back to the time of the Romans. So we always say our biggest competitor has been in business for 2,000 plus years. Gravity systems require large diameter pipes, big clunky pipes that require invasive and very costly installation techniques to get in the ground. They also require lift stations. So a gravity system is going to do essentially what the term implies. It's going to use gravity at a pitch to make wastewater flow downhill till it gets to a certain depth, and then it needs to be pumped back up, and that process needs to start all over again. So gravity requires extensive, costly installation. Typically, really a lot of site disruption takes place when you're putting in a gravity system. Pressure sewer, conversely to that, is a small diameter network of pipes out in the community, typically in the roadway, with a grinder pump system at each home that makes it all work. And pressure sewer systems typically can be installed at a fraction of the price of a gravity system. The site excavation and site work that's required to introduce a pressure sewer system is minimal compared to a gravity system. But what that does from a land acquisition and development standpoint is it opens up the palette. It creates freedom that was prior to looking at a pressure sewer technology would not have been present and applicable. And it really allows developers to take a piece of marginal land that typically they may pass on, and look at it and evaluate it as a potential project and bring it to market. When a builder developers, as your viewers will know, when they're looking at a potential land acquisition, they want to look at typically four things from the utility side. Where's the public water? Where's the public sewer? Where's the electricity? And where's the communications? And how much is it going to cost to get those utilities to a site or from the site in the case of wastewater? So wastewater, typically, this is the feedback that we get from the marketplace, is typically the most expensive one, if not one of the most expensive utilities to introduce to a site. And the issue with gravity, and I'm not going to sit here and say, and we don't as a company, that gravity is not is just terrible in nature. I mean, there are times when gravity is applicable in places like downtown Manhattan, for example. But as you get off the grid and out of the urban centers, that's really where our value proposition starts to kick in. But gravity systems unto themselves are very costly, not only to install, but also to maintain over time. And from a site development standpoint, you really got to make those big gravity pipes work. That's kind of where development often starts. And then the other utilities have to kind of work around that. So we simplify that whole process by allowing wastewater to be introduced in a cost-effective fashion and in a way that works with the character of the existing land.
Okay, so somebody who's doing a development or doing due diligence about a project, and one of those things is to analyze how they're going to handle sewer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So gravity is kind of the way that most people are doing this today, and you have this other approach, which is the low pressure approach to it. What was the need? I guess the initial need, was it cost based? Like, was it to try to provide a solution that doesn't cost as much, or is it there a certain type of environment or a certain type of I think from what I saw on your site, right, there's certain terrain and stuff where the low pressure is going to work better, because obviously gravity has its name for a reason, right? Because things flow with gravity. But in this case, or I guess you have a lift station to help with some of that. But I guess, what was the need? Why was this even created to begin with?
That's a great question. The technology that originally stemmed from a paper that was written in the 1950s by a gentleman named Dr. Gordon M. Fair, who talked about using a pipe within a pipe. So at that time, particularly in the northeastern United States, there was a lot of big, very old gravity pipes that were out there. And there was a general understanding that eventually those pipes would have to be replaced. So the thought initially, and it came out of Harvard University originally, was to put a small pipe within a larger pipe that's already there and just utilize that as a conduit, if you will. That methodology unto itself proved to be impractical because there's just no predictability when it comes to working with an existing old infrastructure, right? So that idea was kind of tabled, circulated around academic circles for a number of years. And then in the mid-1960s, the American Society of Civil Engineers decided that they wanted to really get serious about eliminating storm water overflows and combined sewer overflows that came from aging gravity sewer systems. So they started to take a look at this concept once again and decided there was some validity to it. And really what they were looking at that time was just small diameter pressurized sanitary. And they gave it to, as I said, the American Society of Civil Engineers originally was evaluating it, and they gave it to General Electric to come up basically from a research and development standpoint with a way to bring it to market or just expand its adoption, if you will. So GE looked at it, and a team of engineers came up with the concept of grinder pumps, utilizing small diameter networks of pressure pipe, and decided that, it's an idea that will work, but the market just wasn't right for it at that time. So the original R&D professionals that were working for GE at the time saw a market opportunity that GE wasn't willing to get it behind back then, and they decided to take it to market because they saw the potential that it had, not only for existing septic, failing septic abatement. It had a really clear potential environmental benefit, but also had the idea in mind that builder developers could also use it to introduce sewer in a much more costly fashion. The municipal part of the business is what gained traction first, the septic abatement part of it, and the builder developer market kind of followed that in time.
This episode of the Land Development Podcast is brought to you by Groove. Groove gives you access to over 150 million parcel records across all 50 states, with key ownership information and attributes right at your fingertips. You can also overlay important layers like floodplains, wetlands, school districts, and many more. And when you talk to a landowner, you can track the entire conversation, calls, emails, and notes directly on the parcel. So a year or two later, when you reach back out, you'll know exactly how the last conversation went. Start your free trial today at letsgroove.com/signup. That's letsgroov.com/signup. All right, let's get back to the show. I guess one thing I want to understand is what are the use cases for and like for each of these different types, right? Because you've already said, in these big urban centers, low pressure systems, they're not practical, but where do they make sense? So we have developers of all types listening in, so I think them listening in probably wonder, like, when would this be something I should consider versus a gravity system is really what you're going to have to use in your project?
So for builder developers, I would say that they should consider pressure sewer, at least look at it in terms of due diligence 100% of the time. And gravity is more prevalent in urban centers, but pressure sewer systems actually serve urban centers as well. E1 is in the midst of a septic to sewer abatement program within the city of Indianapolis, where thousands of homes are going to be connected to a pressure sewer system. So it can be used. If you think about your typical urban environment, we think about skyscrapers, right? And we think about, downtown areas, but also think about all those places kind of off the major highway where there's a lot of residential buildings and smaller commercial spaces and things like that, retail centers. So even in urban areas, pressure sewer can be utilized very successfully, and all the same aspects of our value proposition apply. Where it is introduced, more times than not, it can be done in a much more costly, efficient way. But where it's used most prevalently is when you get out into the suburban areas, and now looking at it through a land development lens, through the raw land lens, using pressure sewer, more times than not is going to open up and expand a world of opportunities when it comes to introducing a community in a much more effective way that's more profitable. So really, wherever there's a raw land acquisition that's being considered, or maybe a parcel is being evaluated, we would say 100% of the time that pressure sewer should be considered. As you get away from where the municipal utilities are located, typically, that's really where the value proposition starts to take effect in earnest. And you really start to see the dollars and cents makes it, really become way more visible. So, really, it's almost anywhere we would say is an appropriate time to take a look at this technology. And having been around for going on 56 years, it's no longer an alternative solution. It's pretty mainstream. We have municipal entities in this country, in places like Tennessee and other areas, where they would actually prefer to see, in many cases, pressure sewer utilized as opposed to gravity, because of the reduction in safety risk, the long-term reduction in operation and maintenance and cost management becomes much, much more manageable with pressure sewer. So really, if there is any Land Act people out there, or really anyone in the trade that's looking at this podcast, take a look at pressure sewer. And even if it's ruled out for whatever reason, as a matter of due diligence, it makes sense 100% of the time. Chances are that we can be helpful.
Well, you mentioned dollars and cents. I think that's something people probably are thinking about as well, is like, what's the cost or ROI on something like this versus a sewer or a gravity sewer system? What does that look like?
We can reduce capital expenditure. Let's say, again, through the builder developer land acquisition lens, we can reduce CapEx by 50 to 80% routinely. So with a gravity system, you have to typically put in 100%. Let's say it's a 250 parcel community. You have to put in 100% of that gravity typically, or at least most of it first. And it requires a minimal flow in order to do its job. Gravity, just like any other type of collection, has a minimum scouring velocity or minimum amount of flow that it needs. So from a CapEx standpoint, we're going to reduce costs significantly upfront. From a cost management standpoint, ongoing cost of carrying capital, I always say the best way to help with cash management is to reduce the amount of upfront costs that you're dealing with, reduce the amount of cost in the equation. So when we can, and this is not data that comes from us, this is third party data, 50 to 80% is routinely achieved by using pressure sewer. So from a return on investment, we're going to help builder developers become not only expand options in terms of land acquisition, because we sewer communities that are on the side of a mountain on a giant solid piece of rock. Typically, that would not be something that would be entertained for a community. Well, using pressure sewer, because it's pressurized, because it doesn't require pitch to work, because the excavation and installation aspect of it is greatly minimized relative to gravity, that can now be reevaluated. It might be a piece of land that was looked at 5 or 10 years ago. You can look at it again and in many cases make it work from a pro forma standpoint. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. And I'm also thinking too from, I don't know how long the gravity systems last or how often they have to be replaced, but I am curious, how does the low pressure compare to the gravity as far as maintenance and overall, like when do they have to be replaced?
Yeah. So from a maintenance standpoint, and what we do is different than the rest of the industry. So with our product, it's fully automatic, requires no preventative maintenance whatsoever. As far as the lifetime of the system is concerned, the pipe network is high density polyethylene. The tanks that are utilized are high density polyethylene, or what we call HDPE. So the system itself, our grandkids will be using. So it's, I don't want to say it's eternal because nothing is, but it's multi-generational in terms of its reach. Um, the grinder pumps themselves are designed for a 25 plus year service life, and cost of ownership on a grinder pump is in this day and age is less than $30 per year. So gravity, in comparison to that, looking at gravity, gravity requires extensive ongoing maintenance in order to keep it working in a way that even resembles, optimal. So gravity lift stations require routine maintenance, routine inspection. You've got to pay people to go out there and maintain them. A lot of times builder developers have to set up an HOA that's responsible for that, or in many cases, the builder developer themselves is on the hook, either under a contractual time frame, not uncommon to see 5 and 10 years, that the builder developer will actually have to maintain that sewer lift station, that in many cases the entire sewer system, or the HOA will have to deal with it in perpetuity. So another point that I want to make too, because I think it's important to your listeners, is those lift stations that builder developers are often on the hook to install have to be in accordance with local municipal specifications. So the municipality is looking at a sewer system and responsibly is going to say at some point, we're just going to assume that at some point in the future, we're going to take ownership of this system. Therefore, we want it to be built a certain way. And that usually results in a very costly, Cadillac version of everything. And I don't blame the municipalities for taking that stance. That's looking out for their own best interests and taxpayers' best interests. But in the Northeast, it's not uncommon for a lift station to cost north of 7 figures. $1 million, $1.5 million is certainly not out of the realm of possibility. I've never met a builder developer that has said we love paying for lift stations up front and shelling out, $1 million before we even sell our first house. So I don't mean to be too forward about that, but that's what the marketplace tells us. So with pressure sewer, it's far more streamlined, not only from an installation standpoint up front in the front part of the project, but even ongoing over time. It's we make a UL certified appliance. That's what our pump is considered an appliance. So it's UL certified, just like your appliances in your kitchen at home. It's not some clunky piece of equipment that's going to require someone to take a look at it every year or something like that. A lot of times they're invisible to the homeowners. We'll get phone calls and they'll say, hey, we built this house 30 years ago. We had no idea that we even had this pump because it's worked flawlessly during that time.
Yeah. Can we walk through a case study of this or some sort of example that would show people like how this has been implemented in a actual project so they can kind of see what this looks like? For those of you who are watching us right now, you'll be able to see here up on the screen. Those of you listening will describe what is being shown so you can understand what we're walking through. So maybe we're at about 24 minutes right now. So maybe we can walk through this for a few minutes before moving on. All right. So it looks like we have the slides up here on the screen. So why don't you go ahead and take it?
Sure. So, in terms of citing an example of where pressure sewer technology has been utilized in a successful way relative to gravity, just want to showcase a project that's out on the West Coast. It was brought to us by a builder. It's a top 10 U.S. builder. They had a challenging site. They had a gravity design that they were looking at. The project basically, for the wastewater component, they were looking at gravity. The project itself dated back to 2021. The community itself was 152 homes, and again, the original approach was gravity. So geologically, there were some challenges here that they were dealing with, and they just felt like they could do better. So this builder approached us and asked us to take a look at it. And that's one of the things that we provide is an application engineering study for any builder developer that's interested in using pressure sewer. We'll actually do the engineering of the wastewater system for the builder developer to use as part of their analysis. But with this system, again, 152 home community, the original plan, again, that used gravity called for extensive pipe networks that would feed 3 large lift stations. So the amount of excavation that would need to be done here was significant. Part of the gravity design called for 38 manholes that would be installed in the roadways. Each one of those manholes, I think, was I think it was $15,000 each. One large doghouse manhole would be required as well. And with the gravity system that they were looking at for the wastewater, basically the earthwork to cut, fill, balance became very intricate, significant, and very costly. And they just decided that we need to look at pressure sewer for this instead of just sticking with a design that was going to be very costly. So ultimately, just clicking through to the end here, we did an application engineering study for this builder and were able to quickly show them that they could save a significant amount of money. So we eliminated, as part of the gravity design, 3 lift stations, which cost over $500,000 each. That was roughly $1.5 million in savings up front from a capital expenditure standpoint. The large pipes on the site itself were eliminated. 38 manholes actually worked out to be $13,000 per each. We eliminated 100% of them because those are not required with pressure sewer. That was $500,000 also. The doghouse manhole also was eliminated. That was $6,000. And really where the cost savings that is a little bit more difficult to track up front, not all the time, but it does get a little bit intricate, is the overall site and grade plan was simplified and streamlined, not only due to the big pipe elimination, but because the overall site plan itself and the hydraulic grade line, that whole process was simplified as well. And, really for your viewers that are watching this, what we mean by that in terms of simplifying the site plan is, whatever the natural contour of the land is, basically, the more closely a project mirrors or mimics the pre-construction state, the less costly and intricate it's going to be. So with gravity, if you have a parcel of land that looks like this, maybe it has a valley in it, maybe it's got a peak in it, at some point you need to turn that pad into this, and then you need to do this with it to get the gravity flow to work, more times than not. With pressure sewer, you can leave that parcel in its natural state from the wastewater aspect of things, which then makes the rest of the site plan far more simplified. So in this case here, we were able to save the builder roughly $2.5 million relative to gravity by using pressure sewer. And that increased their profitability greatly. And, this project is being developed right now and is expected to hit the market, I think, later this year. And it's just an example of the numbers, the power that comes along with using pressure sewer technology is in many cases very significant. And, I was in Orlando at a conference recently, and I had a commodities manager from a top 10 builder come up to me after a presentation I gave, and he said, this means that I'm not going to have to truck, you know, all the soil into this site and radically change the nature of that site to get the utilities to work, because I don't need to disrupt the whole thing to get the wastewater component to work. And then the rest of my job becomes far more efficient and far more cost effective, really. So it's just a kind of a quick overview and snapshot of a project that's happening now, and a project that does produce significant cost savings for the builder.
Nice. Well, I appreciate you walking through that. I think that's helpful for people to be able to see and kind of understand what that could look like. What I'd like to do now is kind of shift into our last segment of the show, which is the lightning round, where I have a few questions I'm going to run by you, get your quick thoughts on each of these.
Sure.
First one I have for you is more geared around sales. You've been in sales, so everybody is in sales one way or another, whether they like it or not. And so my question for you is, having a long career in sales, what's the best piece of sales advice you've ever received?
Have passion for the company you represent. Have passion for the technology that you're devoting your life to, your professional life to. I think that's the key. Really just be honest, treat people the way that you like to be treated, do the right things, operate ethically, work, produce good results. I would also say, you know, within our culture, our customers really become our partners. We all become part of the same team. So you can build a team with customers and work towards the same objective and same result. That's really the key. And the way that you get there is by making a good product that solves problems, and doing the right things, and building strong relationships through work ethic, basically. So have passion, and represent a good product and do good work. That's about the best way I can summarize that.
All right. All right, next one. If you weren't in sales, what career path would you be on?
That's interesting. Either some type of sustainable construction, or development and construction, or media, I would say. I think there's a real appetite for podcasts, ones like this, podcasters like yourself that just present facts and let viewers make up their minds in a non-biased fashion. So I know those are very divergent things, but I get really jazzed up about what I see happening in the builder space now, with
Yeah.
all the emphasis on sustainability and efficiency and doing things in a smart way, that I think it's a great industry to be involved with. So I might be a builder if I wasn't working in the pressure sewer space right now. Either that or media.
Yeah, there you go.
So,
All right, third one. With all the traveling that you've done around the world, is there anything other countries do that the U.S. should consider doing when it comes to development?
so I could speak to that from the utilities, underground infrastructure standpoint. In Sweden, in particular, they have a practice where they couple various utilities together underground. And in this country, the standard engineering practice is to keep those things sometimes as far away apart as we can. And in Sweden, they have a practice where it's due mostly to climate and the fact that they have a deep frost line. But they'll often put different utilities together in the same underground conduit, if you will. And in some cases, it's heated and sometimes it's not. But what I think they've realized over time is that's an efficient way to do it, not only from an installation standpoint, but also from an ongoing service standpoint. It allows quick and easy access to underground infrastructure, and helps with troubleshooting and things like that as well. So that's one thing that comes to mind.
Yeah. All right, fourth one. What's your favorite project that you've worked on so far and why?
Another tough question, Ryan. These are good. I would say the one that's probably been most fulfilling is Suffolk County, New York, where we're in the process of connecting thousands and thousands of homes to a pressure sewer system. Really, that's been most satisfying, because if not for the pressure sewer solution, they really would have had a difficult time getting some of those projects off the ground. With the gravity option, it was just too costly. There was really almost no other way to achieve their objectives other than using pressure sewer. So we feel really good about that one, because the work that we're doing there is having a multi-generational benefit, not only on the environment and the quality of life. So future generations will benefit from the introduction of that pressure sewer system. But it's just been a great project, not only for the end user, really everyone involved, but the people that are receiving the systems are going to have a better quality of life. They're going to have a functioning wastewater system, frankly, which is not the case now. So it's just been great to be involved with that.
All right, last one. What trait do you feel has been most responsible for your career progression and growth?
Uh, Again, I would go back to the passion piece of it. I do believe strongly in this technology that we provide to the marketplace. I see the problems that it solves, not only for builder developers but for other stakeholders. So, when you're helping people, you can really feel good about that and hang your hat on it. So, having passion for what you do and intensity. When you're doing the right things, it's not hard to be intense and enthusiastic about it. So, be all in is what I would say.
All right. Well, I think that brings us to a close here. So, what's the best way for people to contact and connect with you, and then also to learn more about Environment One?
Sure. So again, Chris Nedwick, National Sales Development Manager, Environment One Sewer Systems. And I can be reached at 518-596-2186 or cnedwick at e1.com. That's cnedwick at eone.com. Our website is where I would lead people first. That's www.e1.com, or our YouTube channel. So go to YouTube and look up E1 Sewer Systems, and you'll find us. There'll be lots of good case studies and information uh, on both of those places for your viewers to become more familiar with what we do.
Perfect. So, guys, if you look down in the description for this episode, you'll see a link there to the show notes page. On the show notes page, you're going to see all the links that Chris was just talking about there. So, check out the website, connect with Chris, reach out to him if you have questions on any of this. The goal of this conversation wasn't to be, it was meant to be educational, and I think we got that out of this conversation. So, understanding the difference between the different sewer systems and all that. So, hopefully, you found value in this. We've got a lot more great shows coming up. Chris, really appreciate you hopping on and spending time talking about this topic. I know you speak in a lot of different places, so I'm happy you were able to join the show and talk about it here.
Pleasure to be here, Ryan. Thank you again.
You bet. All right, guys, that's all for this episode. We'll talk to you all next week.